We tend to focus on that pain. We tend to focus on the things that we can't do. We tend to focus on the limitations that pain has put on our lives. And I wanted to share a couple of ways that we can start thinking to decrease some of that, right? One of the things that we want to do is begin to get rid of or decrease that negative thoughts and include more positive or balanced thinking, okay? Number one, just some example of some unhelpful thoughts. Number one, believing something is the worst it could possibly be. Okay? We're believing that something is the worst that it could possibly be. So for example, you hurt your back and your thought process is, I'll never get better. For example, you're hearing voices and in your mind you're saying to yourself, I'll never get better. I'll always hear voices. Or in your mind you're saying that I'm depressed, I'm sad, I can't get out of bed. And in your mind you're telling yourself that things will never get better. Right? So what we want to begin to do is begin to think and replace those thoughts with some balanced thinking. So yes, I did hurt my back, but that doesn't mean that things will never get better. Yes, I am hearing voices now, but that doesn't mean that I'll continue to hear voices forever at this same rate, right? So again, I'm going to some other examples is although my back hurts right now, I can use strategies I've been taught to improve the pain. So there are some things, yes, we will have to live with the rest of our lives, right? We will have to learn how to live with it. Well, we have two choices. There are some things, number one, we're going to have to live with the rest of our lives, but we have an option. We can live with it and let it dictate or control our lives, or we can find a way to manage it. We can find a way to overcome it. So, and that's what we're talking about today, is our thoughts. Whenever we're dealing with some type of pain, especially if it's a long-term situation, whether that's pain of hearing voices, pain of depression, whatever the pain is, or dealing with a particular illness, we are so focused on that illness, it's hard to believe that there's a life outside of the illness, that there are options or there are strategies that we can use to help us to overcome the illness. Because again, there are some illnesses that we may have to live with. Even when we talk about prayer, or even when we talk about using faith, some people, even with their prayer and even with your faith, there are some illnesses, some situations that you're going to have to live with. For example, death. Death is a situation that we will all have to live with. It doesn't matter how many times you pray or how long you fast. Death is something that all of us will experience, right? So there are certain things, certain situations, certain illnesses that some of you may be living with that are listening to me that you may be actually living with, okay? So the thought process is, I get a pain and I feel and think as if things will never change in my life. I feel depressed, I feel sad, I feel like things will never change, so I may as well kill myself or die by suicide. Those are the type of thoughts that we have. These all or nothing type of thoughts, as opposed to telling ourselves, well, no, this is how I'm feeling at this moment. But it doesn't mean that this will be this way forever. This is the way I'm feeling at this moment, but the moments do pass. So again, we have to begin to talk back to ourselves. Another thought that we have, a negative thought that's not particularly helpful, is thinking in terms of how things should, must, or ought to be. And this is a big thing for a lot of us. We get into this thing where I shouldn't be sick. He shouldn't leave me. My kid should be an A student. It shouldn't be this way. And we start using these words like I said, should, must, ought to be, always, nobody. These words are so absolute. And some of us, our thinking is so black and white that when things are a little gray, it throws us for a loop. The thing is, yes, we shouldn't be sick, right? We shouldn't be broke or whatever the case is. But if that's the reality at this moment, I talk to, a lot of people, and of course this is a faith-based program, so we have the Word of God as the standard. That's telling us, okay, this is the standard. But then we look at our reality and we see we're not where we need to be. So no, we shouldn't be sick. That's our thought process. We shouldn't be, whatever it is we feel we shouldn't be. But the fact is that we are. That's where grace comes in. That's where grace, which is the ability of God, will make up the difference. So that's why you don't need to beat yourself up for that. So I just wanted to kind of share that, because there's some people who are listening to me. You are sick and you are a person of faith, and you're trying to wonder, trying to understand, why is it that you're praying, why is it that you're fasting, and you're still sick. Well, here's the thing. You want to continue to pray, continue to fast, continue to do what you do, go to church, do all those things that you should do, and you want to leave your healing to the timing of the Holy Spirit. You want to leave your healing up to God and how He chooses to do it. Your job is to pray. Your job is to continue to believe. Your job is to continue to stand in faith, and then let Him do what He needs to do. And He'll lead and guide you for strategies and things that you could do. But we don't want to get into it should be this way. Because some of us are, you can get so stuck on how things should be that you don't move forward. You can get so stuck on how things ought to be that you become angry, that you become bitter. Take a look at where you are now, what's going on in your life now, and begin to ask for a strategy. Begin to develop a plan for now. Another thought process is all or nothing thinking, and I kind of alluded to this. Seeing things as either or, right or wrong, instead of term or degrees. We automatically think this person is wrong because they disagree with me. This person is right because they agree with me. In an argument, people automatically think, well, she's wrong, or he's wrong, or she's right. And a lot of times it's not the case. It's not that extreme. A lot of times people see things differently. Many times there is no right or wrong. When we talk about black and white, there's a gray part there. And sometimes people can see gray as being compromising. And maybe in some cases it is. But when you talk about gray, God lives in the gray. No, He doesn't. He doesn't live in the gray, because that's what grace makes up the difference. Because if it was just black and white, as soon as we did something, we would automatically be cut down. Right? As soon as we did something, we would automatically drop dead. But if He doesn't, that's not how it works. He gives us time to repent. He gives us time to change our mind. He gives us time to make a change, to do something different. So the same ability, the same grace that God is showing us, we need to show it to ourselves as well. Some of us are really hard on ourselves. Our thought process is, I should be further along. I should be married by now. I should be, have kids by now. I should have grandkids by now. I should have a better job by now. I should be making 6 figures by now. I should know what I want to do by now. All of these shoulds and all of these absolutes. And that may not happen. The thing is, you want to tell yourself, it would be nice. I really would like to be able to make 6 figures, but that's a goal that I have. But when we get in these should and ought to and it must be this way, we lock ourselves in, and we don't even give an opportunity for God to get in there, because we want it this particular way. Right? For those of you who don't believe in God, or you don't believe in faith, you have the same problem. Because you're so locked into how you want things to be, you don't give yourself an opportunity for things to come your way, because you want it to be this particular way. It has to be done this way. Right? I have to marry this particular person. I have to have these types of kids. I have to go to this particular school. I need this particular job. And if you don't have these things, you begin to beat yourself up for it, or you begin to feel like there's something wrong with you. Again, what are we talking about? We're talking about thoughts that are not helpful. It is not helpful when we always think in black and white. Not everything is going to be black and white in your life. Not everything is going to be always, I should always know what to do. You are not always going to know what to do. A lot of people are anxious and worried because of that same reason. Because you've hold yourself to this particular standard that you have to be, everything has to be right. You have to, everything. You have to, have it all together. You want to understand that there are going to be times you're not going to have it all together. And guess what? It will not be the end of the world if you don't. Another thing here is overgeneralization, viewing one or two bad events as an endless pattern of defeat. And this is one of the things that gets people, especially when you're dealing with depression. Depression has a way of, whenever we're depressed, we know the negative thoughts, negative feelings, and negative behaviors all go along when we're feeling depressed. When we're depressed, we have a tendency to take one incident and blow it up and make it seem like, that's the end of the world and nothing else is going to happen for me, right? And when I'm depressed, I apply for a job. They turn me down. I'll walk away from the job, and what am I thinking to myself? You're so stupid. You'll never, hear that word never. You'll never get another job. People will never hire you. No one will ever hire you. You will always, again, so what do these thoughts do? These always, this never, these types of thoughts, they trigger or they add to the feelings of sadness, the feeling of depression, and they wind up making you feel more depressed and more sad. Number one, those thoughts are not true. How do I know that I will never, quote unquote, never get another job? How do I know that I will always be a failure? That's not true. What we want to begin to do is talk back to ourselves and begin to challenge those particular negative thoughts. Yes, it may be true that I got turned down for this particular job. And it may be true that I may get turned down for the next particular job. But it doesn't mean that I will never get a job. It doesn't mean that, yes, I made a mistake with this particular situation. It doesn't mean that I'll always make a mistake. It means that I'm human. Yes, I may make a mistake. I made a mistake today. I may make a mistake tomorrow. I may make another mistake next month. But that doesn't mean that I always make mistakes. But whenever we're feeling down or whenever we're in that negative space, all we can see are the bad things. All we can see are the negative things, the things that didn't work out. All we can see are the things that didn't go our way. All we know is, I asked somebody something and they were, they said something to me and it hurt my feelings, and so that means I'm a bad person. So now I've taken that one incident and generalized it into my entire life, and now it's like I'm always going to be a bad person. I'm always a bad person. Things will never work out. And when we start meditating on those types of things, it's no wonder we feel a certain way. Thoughts, feelings, and behaviors go together. Whenever we start thinking negatively, we're going to feel negatively, and we're going to act that way. If you're behaving a certain way, or you're feeling down, or you're feeling sad, take a look at what you're thinking. Take a look at the thoughts that you're feeding yourself on a regular basis. And I'm not advocating positive thinking. We're talking about balanced thinking, right? Balanced thinking takes into account, yes, I am sick. I do have a pain in my body, right? But it's not going to always stay this way. I do have a pain in my body. I don't feel like doing anything. I am tired. I do hear voices. But what can I do? What can I do still to move towards my plan that I have for my life? What can I do to move towards the destiny that God has for my life? I don't have to stay stuck. Our thoughts will keep us stuck. And why do that? How does that happen? Our thoughts keep us stuck because we're focusing on what we can't do. We're so focused on the pain in our lives that we can't move forward. I'm so focused on what's going wrong that I can't move forward towards the things that can go right, towards my future. Another thing here is jumping to conclusions. Making negative conclusions of events that are not based on facts. Making negative conclusions of events that are not based on facts. For example, let's say I have a pain in my back. When I move my back, so it must be bad for me to move, right? I'm going to the bathroom a lot. This must mean I have cancer. We're just kind of jumping to conclusions. Anytime something happens, we just automatically jump to the worst conclusion, right? I called her 3 times. She must don't want to talk to me anymore. She must don't, want to be my friend anymore. We automatically jump into the conclusion. It never crosses our mind that maybe, she had a family emergency and is not home. And she's just not home, right? But we jump to conclusions. Again, jumping to conclusions, we always jump to the negative conclusion, right? And when we jump to that negative conclusion, again, that's a negative thought that's going to bring about a negative feeling, that's going to bring about a negative behavior. Negative thoughts, feelings, and behaviors do not move us closer to the plan of God for our lives. Okay? Believing, this is emotional reasoning. Believing how you feel reflects how things really are. It is true you feel a certain way, but your feelings are not facts. Your feelings are not always true. Just because you feel useless doesn't mean that you are useless. Just because you feel like you're a hopeless individual and that you can't do anything right doesn't mean that you are a hopeless individual and you can't do anything and you'll never do anything right. But what happens is whenever we get into this negative pattern, we put a lot of emphasis on our negative thoughts. And our negative thoughts are coming from our depression, our sadness. Our negative thoughts can only tell you negative things. Negative thoughts will only lead to negative feelings and negative behaviors. So again, it's important to realize that how you feel doesn't reflect the reality. We have to begin to challenge how we feel. Why am I feeling this particular way? What is going on? What am I thinking about? What am I meditating on throughout the day? I always say that if we were able to carry a tape recorder around with us and to record our thoughts for 30 days, what type of thoughts would be on those tape recorders? So many of us will be shocked. You'll be shocked to listen to those automatic things that go through your head, those automatic thoughts that you tell yourself that you don't even realize it. You're driving, and let's say, for example, you hit a pothole. Oh man, you're so stupid. Why did you hit that pothole? You should have went around, right? You go into the store, and then maybe you don't have enough change. You got to run back to the car. Look at you. You always do this. Why you always do dumb stuff? What type of things will be on your tape recorder? Again, many people will be surprised. Another thing, but that's really important, believing how you feel reflects how things really are. And many people get stuck with that because you think that your feelings are facts. No, it just reflects how you feel. Right? And how you feel is not always accurate. Your feeling is based on your negative thoughts, your negative behaviors, your negative experiences. What you want to do is begin to check your feelings. You want to begin to say, is this really true? Now, I made a mistake, that's true. But I don't always make mistakes because there are times in my life where I've done really well. Is it true that I feel like nobody likes me? Is that really true? Right? It may be true that this particular person don't like you. But there are people who have been in your life, there are people in your life who do like you. So if there are people in your life that do like you, then that statement that nobody likes you is not true. So again, you have to begin to challenge these particular thoughts. And it's going to take practice. It's going to take practice because number one, we have more experience thinking negatively about ourselves than we do positively. And two, because we have more experience thinking negatively, it's easier to think negatively. Okay? Focusing on only the bad and discounting the good. Focusing on only the bad and discounting the good. So when we make small improvements or something goes right for us, we just automatically say, oh, that's not a big deal. Like when someone compliments you and says, oh, that's a wonderful dress. Oh, it's not that big of a... Oh, I just got this from the thrift shop. Oh, you look really nice today. Oh, well, whatever. We minimize our accomplishments, right? Again, a lot of that goes back to that negative thoughts. So again, we want to remember that when we have these negative thoughts, thoughts, feelings, behaviors go together. Whenever we have these negative thoughts, we're going to have negative feelings, we're going to have negative behaviors. And we have to do something with those. We have to begin to challenge those particular thoughts. Many times it's the behavior that we are aware of first because you can see your behavior, right? But when you see yourself acting a certain way or you feel yourself a certain way, feeling a certain way, ask yourself, why am I feeling this way? What is the thought that is driving this? What is the thought? What is the fear that's driving my anxiety? And you want to begin to challenge it. You want to begin to, okay, this is what I'm thinking. I'm thinking that nobody likes me. Well, is this true? I'm thinking that these people are out to get me. It may be true that this person may be out to get you, but is it true that everybody's out to get you? So again, we want to begin to challenge these thoughts. Don't let your negative thoughts just linger in your mind and you don't do anything with it, right? So again, we were talking about identifying and replacing thoughts that are not helpful, and some of this is coming from Dr. Phillips, using some of his work, and then I'm just ad-libbing from our same organization, but I think it's so important, especially when you're dealing with pain. For how long you have the pain. As I said, some people will be diagnosed with an illness that you may have to live with the rest of your life. And if you do, and if that's you, just know that there is still hope. There are still things that you can do. You don't want to spend so much time focusing on trying to get healed, or trying to be disease-free or illness-free, that you forget to live. And now, of course, now that depends on some illness. It depends on the stage where you are in your particular illness. But for some of you, you're in the stage of your illness, or your doctor has told you that you know that this is going to be something that may be a long-term illness. Unless God, you pray and He gives you a miracle, this is going to be something that you have to deal with. But you have to know that as you deal with it, that there's more to life. There's some of you that are listening to me who are dealing with maybe schizophrenia or bipolar, and you know that medications is going to be a big part of your life for a long period of time. But medications is not all there is to you, right? That you have the medications, you also can get married, you can have children, there's life out there to live, right? To the best of your ability, there's life out there to live. You may be in a wheelchair. There are people in wheelchairs living their lives. There, you may be, whatever your situation is, right? There is someone out there who with the same situation that you have, and they are living their best life. You don't have to wait until you're disease-free, until you no longer hear voices. Even with depression, you write yourself a list and say, you know what, one day a week, I'm just going to get out and do something. We have to begin to put some faith, put some action to our faith, okay? So this has been It's Getting Better All the Time Mental Health Outreach with your host, Sister A. Legree, talking about negative thoughts and how it impacts us, especially when we're living with a long-term illness. Because when you're living with a long-term illness, it's easy to become sad, it's easy to become depressed, it's easy to become irritated because you have this illness, right? But you have to get to a point, we all have to get to a point where we realize, okay, right now, this is my life. Right now, this is the illness that I have. So how can I live my life to the fullest with this epilepsy, with this diabetes, with this hypertension, with this schizophrenia? How can I live my life to the fullest and have my best life with bipolar, with whatever the disease is, whatever it is, you want to do that. Because if not, we can spend so much time focusing on the negative, on our disease, and become sad and depressed about it, that we start getting to this habit of walking around with negative thoughts and negative behaviors, and wondering why we're depressed, or why I'm sad, or why I feel stuck. Well, we're stuck because we have to make a decision. If you're feeling stuck, that's because you're halting between two opinions. You have to make a decision. Pull out a pen or paper and decide what you're going to do, and make that decision and do it. Again, you can find out more about us by logging on to our website at igbattmho.org. And like I said, you can get more information. But again, this has been It's Getting Better All the Time Mental Health Outreach, providing information and support while encouraging hope and faith.